Hello from Venice. Weather is, as you can tell, and welcome to this special vlog, which will be 4 comic books and 4 corresponding locations which were somewhat inspired by the comic books. Did I choose comic books to suit locations or the other way around? Who knows? I shall never tell. Intro. Hello from a gondola in Venice. We're heading towards the Rialto Bridge, which is a very romantic location, I feel, and it is apt because the first comic that we'll be discussing is Heartstopper. I don't remember the author, I did not check. So Heartstopper is a comic book which was first published as a webcomic, and I've been following along as a teenager, or I don't know, like in my early 20s when it first came out, and now it's been published, translated in Polish, and there is a Netflix film coming up. So I'll be sharing some romantic locations to match the vibe of said comic. So I think gondolas in the evening kind of match the vibe pretty well. So now I'll take you on a gondola trip with me and my family and talk to you a little bit about what Heartstopper is like, and also its freshly released TV show adaptation. So Heartstopper is a story of Nick Nelson and Charlie Spring, with Charlie being a little bit more of a protagonist. I feel that he gets a little bit more page time, if you will, and Charlie has been outed in his all-boys school as gay and suffered pretty severe bullying the year previous. This is the new year. The bullying has since died down a little bit, and he's kind of reestablishing himself. He has friends, the friends being Tao and Harry, I believe, and when he starts class, he kind of crashes instantly or falls in love with Nick Nelson. And the TV show adaptation is actually really true to the original. A little bit too true, perhaps, because the comic book is really adorably drawn, but it is very simplistic, very stylized. And the comic and the TV show actually takes great pain to include several panels directly from the comic book. Like, we can just see side by side comic panels and the scenes. And why do I mean that it's a little bit too good of an adaptation? I mean that because actually that made the show watch a little bit like a K-drama or a Turkish drama, and it does not really suit the tone. In Turkish, Korean, or Latin American dramas, there is a tendency to include those prolonged shots of people just looking at each other or just looking at something and feeling things. And that does not read as natural for me in a British TV show. It just doesn't really suit the vibe. And here, to wrap things up, you get to hear a gondola singer.
To jak się nauczył włoskiego? To muszę się nauczyć grać na akordeonie.
Sorry for the abrupt cut. Now we'll move on to a little bit of sightseeing in Venice and end up with the perfect date spot, so keeping up with the romantic theme, which is St. Mark's Plaza. Like, behold those different things I'm going to show you. San Mark's Plaza, which is kind of the key point, the main thing that you have to visit while on vacation in Venice. And the thing that I want to mention while here is that in general, piazzas are supposed to be those beautiful marvels of architecture, because the whole space is supposed to be planned and serve not only a practical but also a decorative purpose. So here, when you see, we'll do like a 360. You can see that everything is planned and the architecture all around us is completely uniform to build up this kind of stately feeling. Next comic I read was Seconds by Brian Lee O'Malley, which I think qualifies as a fantasy. This is a story of a chef, 29-year-old Katie, who is a founder but not the owner of Seconds, a very great restaurant where she occupies a room. She lives upstairs in the restaurant, but it is not hers. She has since invested money in Lucknow, a place where she wants to build her own restaurant, where she will be the co-owner. But the thing is that the renovations of the old building are not going too well. I don't think I'm selling it too great, but okay. This comic is, I think, beautifully drawn, but what made me buy it in the first place was the way that it was printed. This thick cover, this beautiful dust jacket. Usually I am anti dust jackets, but here I like both the original cover, the dust jacket, which is smaller, and I think it adds something to the visuals, but also I love the art style inside it. I think just the one potential critique of the art style is that it suffers from the similar thing as the what are they called, Black or something. There's this series of comic books where all the people are drawn as animals. They are animals, and the men have a huge diversity, but most women are just animals with tiny button noses and different ears, and they all look the same no matter whether they are mice or cats or dogs. So in this comic book, I think the men are drawn in a lot of ways, but the women are kind of drawn in a way that they all gravitate towards the cute aesthetic, but I don't mind that because they are not sexualized then. So maybe that's just how this guy perceives women. He thinks that they are cute or something, but I don't actually mind it. But it is noticeable, especially if you consume a lot of comic books, which I do. So this is a comic book that I really recommend, and the plot is that an accident occurs on the premises of Seconds, the restaurant, and then Katie is handed a mushroom which she consumes, which allows her to rewind time. So the motive of rewinding time and repetition is something that is present within the book, as well as I mean, food is also a theme within the story, and that's why for this comic book I am going to be recommending you a restaurant and an experience which takes you back in time. First, I'd like to recommend you a restaurant. Trattoria Osteria al Baccaretto serves traditional Venetian food, which consists mainly of seafood, fried, like my parents got here, or in a pasta form like I got, but the grey, frankly unappealing looking things are actually artichoke steaks, which are a local delicacy. My pasta honestly slapped. I also went for this fresh scissor cut pizza. However, I don't remember the name of this place, so just imagine that having pizza in Venice is very important. And also this chocolate fountain is something I wanted to show you, but just as an addition to my date and romantic section of the video, don't you think that getting your girl or your boy a chocolate or an ice cream flower is more romantic? I think so. As for the going back in time part, I recommend you go see I Musici Veneziani, which is a little bit of a touristy experience, but it's experienced musicians performing the whole Four Seasons by Vivaldi in a beautiful, I think, 16th century palace while wearing historical garments. The soloist of the concert was amazing, and this is the ceiling you get to observe if you look up. And the third or fourth, I don't know. And the next comic that I'll be talking about is Saga. I'm holding up number 5, but I took both 4 and 5 with me, and I chose Burano to represent this because of the colors of the comic book. I mean, colors is something that the artist really plays with, and it's something that you remember after you're done reading, so it's definitely an apt place to have visited. You can see just comics. I might still put up some panels. So Saga is a comic book that keeps at the same level of quality, which is extremely high, which I am very glad of, because it is my favorite. I think it is my favorite series of all time. This is fantasy sci-fi, kind of like a space opera at this point, because the characters have traveled so much. And also a bit of a family drama. At this point in the story, the characters are split up across multiple places, so we just follow them along. There's a lot of drama, and it is Game of Thrones level of both gore and also chance that your favorite character will die. This is not like a warm hug of a comic book. So this gets, I think it still gets a 5 stars for me at this point. Poor child. And now you'll see my vlog from Burano, the colorful, technically I believe district of Venice, a part of it anyway. Oh. Oh, is this a straight tower? No, I don't think so. As you can tell. Extremely unheterosexual. My nail matches the sky. So what we see here might not be that special for you, but it is actually a tree. Venice suffers from a critique lack of trees. I have seen 2 in 2 places, and in Burano we have many of them. Well, we have at least 3, possibly more. I think there are more parks of this size. So this is actually bearable, and I think the colorfulness of the city really helps the vibe. So Burano is definitely recommended, especially if you're staying in Venice for a couple of days. You will need a break. Let me wrap things up with comic book number 4, Nomen Omen, by Jacopo Camagni and Marco Bucci. I have read the previous 2, and they had the markings of a very promising new series. And while this one delivers on the art style spectrum, it's a very beautiful comic. I will just include pictures because I have no way to open it right now, but it is very visually beautiful. I'm afraid this one just does not stay at the level of the previous ones. It has some of the markings of a great comic book for me, so beautiful art style. It has interesting story. It's in color, which is a huge benefit to me, and also it's not like a must, but I need attractive character design to really enjoy a comic, so all of that is there. But it has the huge flaw of being over-talked. There is way too much talking going on and way too much world building via text, which is kind of slightly unforgivable for the medium of comic book to me. So I'm afraid that this one is like a 3-star read at most. It's still very beautiful, and I'm glad to have it, and I hope that they will fix it with latter issues, because that's the benefit of the series, that they can get better with time again. So I'm really holding on and hoping that they will get better. I will continue reading them. And for this comic book I have picked, because what is it about? So this book is about Rebecca Kumar, who has the heart of a witch. And in general, this is an urban fantasy, I'd say, which uses the medium of different art styles as well as colors to signify that a world is being changed, or the place or the action has moved somewhere else. My bag is so heavy. So the comic book is slightly sexy, slightly scary, slightly gory, and it tells like a grand fantasy story. I won't go into details because that would be spoilers, to be honest, but there's just a grand plot, prophecies and stuff like that. And for this comic, because it takes place in like 87 different spaces, and because the spaces are so transient and just changing from one to another, I chose some weird art projects and just in general weird places to represent this. I'll start with two rather low-key places. First of all, this wonderful store, which was actually closet-sized, a curated, colorful space called aptly Colori, which I think is just adorable and worth seeing. And apart from that, this pasticceria, this sweet shop, which sold only thumb-sized tiny little cakes. And the last project I wanted to share was this modern art exhibition called Abandoned Futures. It consisted of 2 art pieces in this ex-church space. The first one being this huge installation that was supposed to evoke the feeling of being underwater. You just sat yourself on a chair like this one and observed and took in the surroundings, which were the sounds of water and stuff like that. It was supposed to evoke this moment in time where the author and several children which did not speak the same language met on a big beach, and it started raining and they went underwater. They just submerged underwater and observed each other, and because the rain was pouring and the water surrounded them, it felt like the ocean was endless. So that's why they did it. The second art piece that we're watching right now had more so an environmentalist message. These 2 huge sculptures made of styrofoam, by the way, just listen to this, were filled with screens, and each screen displayed different things. Some displayed ship technologies like for measurement and stuff. There were also images of just stuff underwater, and here you have me for scale of how massive it was. And with that, we've come to an end. That is it for my 4 days in Venice for comic books vlog. Thank you very much for spending this time with me. Consider subscribing. I have a newly really popular TikTok, which is quite often in Polish, but in English as well, and when it concerns Witcher. And all my other social media will be linked in the description box below. Have a nice time and enjoy this mysterious clip as an outro. Okay, so something weird is happening here because I, in real life, cannot see these things flickering. I think it's the reflections from the water because my own eyes do not see that flicker.